Hi everyone, it's Simon Keeling here at weatherweb.net, and it is Wednesday the 31st of July, going into the final third of summer, at least meteorologically speaking now, and compared to last year it's not been too bad, has it? Now don't forget, the site's kept free of charge by the adverts you see around the screen here. It's by you coming back, using the site, using the adverts. That's what keeps us free of charge, and I know many of you support us with that, so thank you very much, and for telling your friends about us. Now, just talking there about 2012 and the contrast with this year, talking to Captain Bob last night, and he pointed out a chart that I'd missed. And it's this. This is the mean temperature north of 80 degrees north. And it goes throughout the year. This is from 2012. And the point we're at now is about here. Okay, now the red line and the green line are just different ways of assessing from a couple of different models the temperature, and it's a running temperature, and the blue line is the 0 degrees Celsius line. Now notice that this time last year, look, we were above normal, so sorry, not above normal, above zero, so temperatures were above zero. Now the scale is quite small, so of course we do have to take that into account, but just compare it with this year. So this is 2013, and look, despite the temperatures being above zero for some time, they've actually now come down to be on zero. So they've actually fallen. And what will be interesting to see is whether that cool weather that's still across the North Pole persists, and whether that temperature stays closer to freezing. That could have implications for our weather as we go through the winter, as we go through the autumn months and into the winter, because if the pole is cold and is significantly cooler, then we do get that sharp contrast between the pole and the equator, and equator temperatures at the moment are around or just above normal, so we've got a stronger contrast in place there. Globally, the whole globe is around or just below normal as far as the whole of July goes. So this is stacking up to give us some interesting snapshots into temperature, and also give us a little bit of an indication as to how this may impact on winter conditions. And hopefully the global longer range models are taking this into account. Now, using those global long-range models, it's been pretty difficult actually to predict the weather through August and September. Really difficult to pin down. So one of the things that we can use are analogues. And frequently, what's been showing up is 1974. So when we compare this year back to previous years, or at least the forecast for the next 7 days back to previous years, 1974 keeps appearing. And so I've looked at how the following 2 weeks were in 1974 from the initial 8-day forecast that the Analogues was based on. Now this is the 500 millibar flow, the anomalies from the 8th of August through to the 20th of August 1974. And it's quite interesting to see what happened, because look how high the heights were. We had a centre of high heights across the country, a ridge kind of through here, probably a trough through here as well, during that period. And relating that back down to surface pressure, this is how the anomalies looked. The higher pressure than normal was to the east of the country, affecting the whole of the British Isles. And this was the mean sea level pressure during that period. Look, higher pressure centred in the North Sea here, lower pressure off towards the west, with a flow coming in from the southwest. Now, that's very reminiscent of what the Korean model was trying to do through the middle part of August. So it's building my thoughts that actually what we could find is higher pressure. I think it's probably going to be a little bit further south, but higher pressure down towards affecting more southern parts of the country in the middle part of the month into the latter part of the month. That's backed up by the CFS, and dry conditions there with more unsettled conditions across Scotland and Northern Ireland, although I have to admit that's against my initial indications of a more unsettled August, although I do think my initial forecast of an unsettled start to August, improving in the middle, probably is going to come true. It's just that end bit where I thought it would go unsettled that now looks like high pressure could be in place, although I do still think that the final few days of August could go quite thundery. And let's just take the 1974 analogy a bit further. Of course, you've got to treat it with a pinch of salt, but this is the forecast then for the following 2 weeks. This is mean sea level pressure from the 21st of August through to the 4th of September 1974. And what's noticed here is, look, high pressure got squeezed off towards the south, we've got a west to southwesterly flow, but a far more unsettled look to things, particularly across northern and western areas during that period. And as I've just said, the models are indicating a breakdown right at the very end of the month, only for a limited amount of time. And then beyond that, into the middle of September, well, this is what happened in 1974. Again, treat it with extreme caution. But it's just interesting to see, look, this flow came in from the west, low pressure to the north, high pressure to the south, a much more normal flow, westerly flow, but it led to a cooler and unsettled September, particularly again for northern and western parts. It's going to be interesting to see how that compares, isn't it? And then October, well, this was October 1974, again, really pushing the boundaries here. You know, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but it's interesting to see, particularly when this totally coincides with what the CFS is hinting at. In October, it actually built high pressure in. It had a dry month through October, quite warm at the beginning, cooled off at the end, bit of an unsettled middle. But isn't that interesting, look, that it's trying to show us high pressure to the west, low pressure off towards the east, and that's pretty much where the CFS is trying to point to things just at the moment. So back to August then, how do things look? Well, this is my forecast for August. As I say, low confidence in this one, really low confidence in this one, but this is what I think will be. This went out to private clients earlier, and this is what I think we're likely to see. I've gone for the idea of warm conditions across central and eastern parts of England and the south. I've gone for, you can see here, look, 40 to 60% of rainfall, most of that during the first 10 days and during the final couple of days of the month, and temperatures at 1 to 4 degrees above normal for the time of year. I actually think that's probably worthwhile pulling up a bit now, so we'll probably go, I would go to 2 to 3 degrees above normal for the time of year. I think the far southwest and western Wales, because of this west-southwesterly flow, probably gets into 70-90% of normal rainfall. Again, warm there. I think eastern Scotland probably gets into a 60 to 80% of normal rainfall. Temperatures generally above normal, slightly above normal, but you can see there with 60 to 80% of rainfall drier than normal, and then 100 to 120% of normal rain across western parts of Scotland and the west of Ireland. And really what I've based this forecast on is at the beginning of the month we're stuck in these westerlies, but then we find the higher pressure building, and with the west-southwesterlies it's always western Scotland and western Ireland that sees the highest risk of rain, potentially as well the west and the south of Wales and the far southwest of England. But with that pattern it's going to be eastern and southern areas that are more protected from it. And what of the CFS? Well, this is the forecast for Birmingham for the next 3 months. This is a forecast chart that goes out to a private client, and what you can see here, look, here's our warm temperatures that it's picked up quite nicely on in the early part. Then it's taking temperatures off, look, into this early part of August. So we've got the 11th here. Then it picks up temperatures again into the middle of the month. And what I want you to notice here, look, is this dry spell here through the middle of the month, but then picking up on the chance of some rain coming through right at the very end of the month. And I back that up before going warm for the first few days of September. And then September really cools off, and look, you'll notice here becomes quite unsettled through much of the month. So CFS backing up these thoughts that we've had in the forecast, that this is the way things would go, and that most rainfall is certainly in this first part of August, with the least less on in August, but the chance of just some thundery outbreaks or rain at the end of the month before an improvement for a short time at the beginning of September. So it's good to get some backup in the longer range. Just a quick look here at the GFS ensemble for Birmingham for the shorter range for the next 16 days. Here's the heat look coming through during the course of tomorrow. Notice what it's trying to do though. Notice these green bars here taking us through into the middle part of the month, indicating that there's some showers or some rain around for much of the time, exactly as you would expect with a flow given the way that it is. I do think putting detail into the forecast for next week is very, very difficult to nail down at the moment, but I think best to work on not a wet week, but a changeable week. And I do think we need to think of the threat of a day of heavy thundery rain at some point during next week. But generally, notice that temperatures hold fairly steady. Okay, I'm going to leave you with that for now. I know there was lots of information there, so There's lots to absorb, isn't there? But listen, thanks again for watching. Just a reminder, we kept free of charge by the adverts you see around the screen here, and by you coming back and using the site means that we can keep it free of charge. Now, as always with these long-range forecasts, I urge you to use the forecasts sensibly, okay? They're there as a guidance. I don't want you coming back and saying, well, you said so, and you said this, and you said the other. You know, we check it out through the month. We amend the forecast as we go. These are long-range stuff, and you're a mug to say, oh, this is how it's going to be. So expect the forecast to change. Don't bet your house on it. It's just interesting to see where this guidance goes. So once again, thanks for watching, and keep the sun shining. Bye for now.